Before we step inside a medieval tavern, we must understand the world that existed beyond its wooden doors. 14th century Europe was not a place of comfort. It was a world shaped by uncertainty, war, famine, disease, and harsh winters that tested human endurance. Life revolved around the land. Nearly 80% of the population worked in agriculture. Survival depended entirely on the harvest. A failed crop did not mean inconvenience. It meant hunger. Most people lived in small timber houses with dirt floors and limited heating. Food was seasonal. Fresh produce appeared briefly in summer, then vanished. What remained for winter had to be preserved, salted, dried, or stored underground. Economic systems were fragile. Wealth was unevenly distributed. Nobles owned land. Peasants worked it. Taxes were heavy and labor was constant. A farmer's day began before sunrise and ended after sunset. There were no days off in planting season. Cities were growing, but they were crowded and unsanitary. Streets were narrow and muddy. Waste often flowed openly. Clean water was not always guaranteed. Illness spread quickly. In such a world, food was not about pleasure. It was about calories, about strength, about lasting through another winter. This harsh economic and environmental reality shaped everything, including the tavern. The tavern was not born from luxury. It was born from necessity. It existed in a world where survival came first and comfort was rare. And only by understanding this world can we truly understand what a bowl of stew meant to the people who ate it. Step inside a medieval tavern, and the first thing you would notice is the air. It was thick. Smoke from the central hearth rose slowly toward the ceiling, collecting beneath heavy wooden beams blackened by years of soot. Chimneys, as we know them today, were not common in earlier centuries. The fire burned openly in the center of the room, its heat spreading unevenly across the space. The tavern building itself was usually made of timber. Thick wooden frames supported walls filled with wattle and daub, a mixture of mud, straw, and sticks. The floor was often nothing more than packed earth, sometimes covered with rushes or straw to absorb spilled ale and dirt. Light was limited. Windows were small and often shuttered to keep out cold winds. Illumination came from tallow candles made of animal fat. These candles burned quickly and produced more smoke than light. Only the wealthy could afford cleaner beeswax candles. The hearth was the heart of the tavern. Above it hung a heavy iron pot suspended by a hook or chain. The fire served multiple purposes, cooking, heating, and providing the only reliable light source at night. Sparks occasionally leapt upward, the smell of burning wood mixed with food and human bodies. Seating was simple. Long wooden benches and rough tables filled the room. There were no individual dining spaces. Taverns were communal by design. People sat shoulder to shoulder, sharing warmth and space. Insulation was poor. In winter, cold air slipped through cracks in the walls. Animal hides or thick cloth might be hung to block drafts. Even so, only those closest to the fire felt truly warm. The tavern was not designed for beauty. It was built for function. Strong beams, durable wood, a fire that never fully went out. The structure reflected the world outside, practical, resilient, and shaped by necessity. Within those smoky walls, architecture served one purpose above all others: survival through winter, night, and hardship. And in that rough wooden space, the tavern became more than a building. It became shelter. Before modern refrigeration, before global trade, before supermarkets stocked with food from every climate on Earth, medieval people lived by one unbreakable rule: you ate what the season allowed. Food was not constant, it was cyclical. Spring meant scarcity. By late winter, stored supplies were nearly exhausted. Grain bins ran low, salted meat thinned out. This period was often called the hungry gap. People survived on whatever remained: dried peas, coarse bread, thin pottage. Summer brought relief. Fresh greens appeared first: onions, leeks, cabbage leaves, then beans, then early grains. Markets slowly became more colorful. Taverns reflected this change. Stews grew thicker, bowls became heavier. Autumn was abundance. Harvest season determined survival for the entire year. Barley, rye, oats, These grains were life itself. If the harvest failed, famine followed. If it succeeded, taverns filled with stronger ale and fuller pots. Animals were often slaughtered in late autumn. Why? Because winter feed was limited. Livestock that could not be sustained were preserved, salted, smoked, dried. This was when taverns briefly had more meat. Winter was preservation season. Fresh vegetables disappeared. Diet shifted back to salt pork, dried fish, stored grain, hard cheese. Nothing was wasted. Cabbage could be fermented. Fish could be salted in barrels. Meat packed in salt could last months. Grain was stored in dry lofts, protected from moisture and rats as best as possible. But storage was risky. Mold, rot, insects, rodents. A single bad harvest could collapse entire communities. The tavern existed inside this fragile system. Its menu was never fixed, because the medieval world itself was never stable. Food was not chosen for taste, it was chosen for survival. And every bowl served inside a tavern was directly connected to the rhythm of the land. The planting, the harvest, the slaughter, the long winter wait. In the medieval world, nature dictated the menu. At the center of nearly every medieval tavern stood a single object that defined survival: the pot. Not a polished kitchen tool, not a decorative centerpiece, but a massive iron cauldron suspended over open fire, day after day, year after year. This was pottage. Pottage was not a recipe, it was a system. Whatever the land provided went into that pot. Barley, rye, oats, cabbage, leeks, onions, beans. If meat was available, it was chopped small and stretched thin. A little pork fat could flavor an entire pot. Bones were especially valuable. As they simmered for hours, marrow dissolved into the broth, adding strength and calories. The pot rarely emptied completely. Instead, new ingredients were added as the day went on. Morning pottage was thin and watery. By evening, it grew thicker, richer with everything that had been added. It was efficient. Fuel was expensive. Firewood required labor. Keeping one fire burning continuously was more practical than relighting many small ones. The tavern pot fed peasants, travelers, laborers, and soldiers alike. Every bowl dipped into the same mixture. In a world without refrigeration, long simmering helped reduce spoilage. Boiling killed many harmful bacteria. Salted ingredients preserved structure and flavor. But beyond practicality, pottage represented something deeper. It was communal. You did not order your own meal. You shared from the same source. One pot, one fire, one rhythm. For the medieval worker, that bowl provided carbohydrates for energy, fat for endurance, and warmth for the bones chilled by wind and rain. It was not beautiful, it was not refined, but it kept the body alive. And in the medieval tavern, that was enough.
If pottage was the heart of the tavern, then grain was its lifeblood. In medieval Europe, grain was everything: barley, rye, oats, sometimes wheat, but only for the wealthy. Nearly 70% of a common person's calories came from grain. Not meat, not vegetables, grain. Fields stretched beyond town walls, planted and harvested by hand. Sowing began in early spring. Harvest demanded every able body in late summer. A failed crop did not mean inconvenience, it meant famine. Grain was ground in local mills, often controlled by landlords. Peasants were required to use these mills and pay a portion as tax. Even bread was tied to the economic system. In taverns, grain appeared in many forms. It thickened pottage. It became coarse, dark bread. It was brewed into ale. Bread was dense and heavy. Made mostly from rye or barley, it lacked the softness of modern wheat bread. It could be days old, even slightly hardened, but it endured. Sometimes, thick slices of bread, called trenchers, were used as plates. Stew soaked into them. Nothing was wasted. Grain also determined social class. White wheat bread was rare and expensive. Dark rye bread was common and practical. To see white bread on a table meant wealth. But to most people, grain was not about status, it was about energy. A medieval laborer burned thousands of calories each day plowing fields, hauling wood, forging iron. Without grain, the body would collapse. Grain stored well when kept dry. It could survive through winter if protected from moisture, insects, and rats. Entire communities depended on granaries remaining intact. Inside the tavern, every bowl of stew and every crust of bread was built upon this simple truth: no grain, no survival. It was humble, it was heavy, it was life. Title: Bread, Class, and Daily Reality. In a medieval tavern, bread was more than food. It was identity. The color of your bread revealed your place in society. White wheat bread was soft, refined, and rare. It required finely sifted flour and good harvest conditions. Only nobles, wealthy merchants, or high-ranking clergy regularly ate it. For everyone else, there was dark bread, rye, barley, sometimes mixed with oats or even ground peas, dense, heavy, sometimes coarse enough to strain the teeth, but it endured. Bread was baked in large batches and could last several days. In taverns, thick slices were cut and placed directly on wooden tables. These slices, called trenchers, often served as edible plates. Stew soaked into the bread, grease softened it. By the end of the meal, the trencher absorbed every drop of nourishment. Nothing was wasted, even stale bread had purpose. It could be dried, crushed into porridge, or added back into pottage to thicken the pot. Bread laws existed in many medieval towns. Authorities regulated weight and price. A loaf too small could bring fines. Because bread was not optional, it was survival. Yet bread also revealed inequality. At one table, a merchant might tear into pale wheat bread. At another, a laborer broke apart a dark rye crust. Same tavern, different lives. But in the end, whether white or dark, every loaf carried the same purpose: energy for work, strength for winter, sustenance for another day. In the medieval world, bread was not a side dish, it was the foundation. In modern imagination, medieval taverns overflow with roasted meat, but reality was different. For most people, meat was rare. Livestock was valuable, not only for food, but for labor. Oxen plowed fields, cows gave milk, chickens laid eggs. To slaughter an animal too early meant losing long-term survival. Fresh meat appeared mostly after autumn slaughter, when animals that could not be fed through winter were preserved. Even then, meat was stretched carefully: salted pork, smoked bacon, dried beef. These were not thick steaks served proudly on plates. They were small pieces, chopped, rationed, added into stew for flavor rather than abundance. Salt was essential. Without refrigeration, preservation determined survival. Meat was packed in heavy salt, hung above smoke fires, or dried in cold air. The smell could be strong, the texture tough, but protein mattered. Only the wealthy regularly enjoyed fresh roasted meat. Whole birds turning on iron spits, venison from noble hunts, thick cuts cooked over open flame. In taverns, such moments were rare and often festive. For the average laborer, meat was not the center of the meal. It was a supplement. A few pieces in a pot, a thin slice beside bread, enough to add strength. In the medieval tavern, meat reflected hierarchy. But survival depended not on luxury, only on efficiency.